Good morning. I'm Greg Davigno, the President and CEO of the Business Council of BC. Before we begin today, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the nations of the Squamish, Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples, and we thank them for the opportunity to enjoy their traditional lands today. And I want to thank each of you for joining us for what we're really excited about, the launch of the Business Council of BC's Economic Dashboard, developed in collaboration and partnership with KPMG's Lighthouse group. BCBC, as you know, is a data-driven organization. We take multitudes of facts, interpret them, use our members' insights to provide thoughtful leadership and exceptional public policy advice to governments and to business. And all in, what we're trying to do is unlock BC's full potential for people, for businesses, and for our province. And as we know, this past year has brought countless challenges at the individual and provincial level. What we found through the pandemic is it's constrained our daily lives. We've had economic lows, disproportionate impacts, some bright spots, but personal and mental health challenges that will persist past the pandemic. This uncertainty has also brought out the best in British Columbians, resiliency and rapid shifts to address the public health crisis and our economic challenges. But as the virus and the pandemic evolve, we've been able to pivot. Since the beginning of the pandemic, British Columbians have been acutely aware that access to reliable and factual information is vital. With context, it's essential to make decisions that are informed for your family, for your employees, and for your businesses. Governments, as a consequence, have stepped up in material ways with financial supports for individuals and businesses that have been important to keep people at work and to keep our economy and our lives moving, particularly in the early days and for those hardest hit and most vulnerable in our communities. And while it has been essential for many, we now face the reality of mounting combined personal, corporate, and government debt. But as the virus diminishes, we're going to have to rely on smart, sustainable private sector growth and the need for higher productivity per capita. And to offset that debt and to ensure that governments have the revenue that they need to provide social services we all expect and rely on, we're all going to have to work together to that end. So last year, over 80 CEOs, Indigenous leaders, and community leaders came together with the Business Council to build our Stronger Tomorrow Starting Today, an economic plan for families and businesses, which we released last July. And as we were doing the work, we were contemplating how we would track recovery and our economic well-being into the future. How could we create something that is accessible and transparent in one place to help inform and provide context to the opportunities ahead? And as the world and BC have recovered, in some instances much more quickly than we anticipated, we want to have the ability to compare how we're doing to other jurisdictions and, where possible, in real time. So to understand economic trends and the impact that they have on individuals and their activities, as well as the social well-being of our province, to show risk and opportunity in a changing and complex world that's only going to get more complex in the years to come. So as we explored this concept, we came together with the KPMG Lighthouse team to create the most unique source of consolidated data and comparative information in the country through a BC lens. It's a product that exceeded our vision, and you'll see more of it today. And we're going to continue to collaborate with KPMG to evolve the dashboard and introduce new indicators as our economic prosperity continues. So thanks again to KPMG and their work and partnership through this process. What we are launching today is a public service, open to the public, easy, navigable, broad array of credible data indicators. Now that can be boring, but in this dashboard, you're going to find it incredibly exciting. Chronicles what we've done, what trends are developing, and where we're going in our lives, our businesses, and our economy. Combined with a growing number of near real-time data sources that will be updated several times a day, we're going to be able to capture new trends and risks as they emerge. And that updated daily consolidated information is going to be in one place. The Business Council of British Columbia Economic Dashboard. The dashboard will provide British Columbians, Indigenous leaders, government, media, and business community with a single source location for insights on how we're investing, how we're growing, how we're moving as people and as goods and businesses, and government and the programs that they're putting into place and what the impact of them may be to inform our quality of life going forward. And also the dashboard comes with insights and analysis from our BCBC policy and economic experts that the public has come to rely on, providing context, thought leadership, and recommendations on the priorities as we move BC forward together in a more inclusive, innovative, low-carbon economy of the future. So all in all, this informs how we can meet our full potential to benefit all British Columbians and our province. So now we're going to hear a special message from an executive committee member of the Business Council, Walter Pela, who is also the regional managing partner for KPMG. And Walter's going to be followed by a demonstration to give you an overview of the dashboard from our chief economist, BCBC's Ken Peacock. Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Thanks, Greg, and welcome everybody to our Ignition Center. This is our Data and Analytics and Exponential Technology and Design Thinking Center. While our KPMG Ignition and Lighthouse teams aren't here, pre-pandemic, you would see a lot of collaboration happening in this space where we work together with clients to design and create solutions around data and analytics. And we're very excited about this project and this collaboration that we worked on with the Business Council of British Columbia and their economics and policy team, together with our data scientists and our software engineers, to develop something that I think you'll all find very exciting. And so on behalf of the Business Council and on behalf of KPMG, I welcome all of you. I'm very excited to hear more and have you learn more about this tool. So why don't we go further down here afield. When the Business Council recognized that there was a need for a barometer or a dashboard to measure and track the health of the BC economy, we were really happy to be able to step up and collaborate and bring our data scientists and software engineers to try to create an automated data platform that would bring together economic indicators as well as other signals real-time or as real-time as they could be to create one place to measure and track the health of the BC economy and help inform thinking in this province. And we're very, very excited about this collaboration. It's been a wonderful experience, and I think the tool that we've pulled together will be extremely useful to the council, its members, BC citizens, BC business, government, and other stakeholders. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the Chief Economist of the Business Council, Ken Peacock, to really show us what it is. So Ken, over to you.
Well, thanks, Walter. It is a great pleasure to be here. Just before I jump in to start describing some of the details and aspects of the dashboard, I think it's important to say that this really has been an enjoyable project. Working with the KPMG team has been fabulous. The collaboration and teamwork that we have enjoyed has brought us to a place where the product vastly exceeds our initial expectations. So we are pleased, and it's also got us to the point where we're keen to continue to build it out in the future, add more data, add more information, and just make it a more robust and more useful tool for all British Columbians. So having said that, I think we should just give users or viewers a quick preview of what's in the dashboard. From this landing page, users can get a quick sense of the strength of the economy. Currently, there's a lot of green showing. These are year-over-year percent increases. Lots of green suggests the indicators are positive and there's some strength in the economy. Alternatively, they could all be red at different points, or they could be mixed. The more relevant and important and useful feature of the dashboard is the ability to dive down a little deeper. And I'm just going to click on the labor market dive deeper button. And this takes us to a page where users can see in much greater detail. On this page, again, you see the employment situation. You can quickly see that BC's employment level has recovered to where it was and even surpassed it slightly where it was last February. But scrolling down a little bit, you see a map For comparative purposes across the country, again, BC stands out as doing well vis-a-vis other provinces in terms of employment recovery. But some of the more useful features of the dashboard are the ability to configure my view. The default setting shows people the percent change in employment in the different industries within the province. But if you click the Configure My View button, you can look at year-over-year change, or you can look at the absolute number of people employed in an industry to get the sense of how large a sector is relative to other sectors. I can configure it to show me year-over-year change in the different industries. And this is of interest because you can quickly and easily see sectors like professional services are growing very rapidly, legal services, accounting services, but particularly computer and anything related to computer services, lots of job growth in that space. But still, because of the situation with the virus, the food and accommodation sector or industry employment is down sharply in that area, and that shows up here in the dashboard. Another useful feature is the ability just to look at year-over-year job growth and compare it to other jurisdictions as well. We can jump over to the economy button, which provides information and data on GDP. This button is a little bit more backward looking. GDP is kind of the key measure of economic activity, but it's slower in coming out. So it tends to be more of a backward looking indicator, but it is very important for kind of understand the economy, the structure of the economy, and how fast we're growing and how fast we've grown over the past decade, particularly in relation to other provinces. Let's look at just another area of interest. Consumer spending has been something that we've monitored closely at the Business Council as we try and track this recovery. And this is an area where we see a very, very robust recovery. To some degree, it's not surprising because consumers are restrained from spending in other areas, no traveling, for example. They're not going out to sporting events because those are still closed. Theaters, gambling operations, all those are closed. So really, the only outlet for consumers is retail spending. To my mind, it's not particularly surprising that retail sales have shown robust recovery and are growing rapidly. But again, it is interesting when we compare BC to other provinces, as we can do on the dashboard here. BC is outperforming or has seen a stronger recovery in retail spending than most other provinces. Seeing we initially conceptualized this as a dashboard to monitor the recovery, COVID obviously was a big feature of that, the spread of the virus, the ability to contain it, and now the pace of vaccinations. So we do include a COVID button or a COVID page in our dashboard. Our main metric for the COVID dashboard is vaccinations, and that's just because we think that now that we have vaccinations being rolled out, this is really the critical thing to watch in the battle against the virus. As the number of vaccinations increase, the virus will retreat and we will hopefully get the pandemic behind us. Here I would just note there are several other COVID dashboards operating in Canada and British Columbia. We do not have as much detail as those, but we just thought it would be helpful for users when they come just to have that additional piece of information. This dashboard brings in what we're calling near real-time or real-time streaming data. And this is information from organizations such as YVR that are going to populate and stream their data on ridership or number of international riders into the dashboard. So it really is the value added of bringing all the information together, presenting it in a useful visual format, and the regular automated updating of the dashboard. When we first started talking about this dashboard, and the KPMG team asked me and my colleagues what you would consider a success. And I said it would be a great success if it was useful to British Columbians, to policymakers, to government, to corporate people, to individuals. All those people, if they could come, use the dashboard, get some information, that would be great. Somebody like myself that mucks around in data on a daily basis and has done so for years and years, I was skeptical that it would be as useful for somebody like that. As the project's evolved, I've reported back to the KPMG team several times, I will be using this dashboard and I'll be using it frequently. So absolutely hit that metric. I think it'll be useful for a broad spectrum of people who are intensive data users, but also for people who are from time to time are curious what's going on. They too will find this dashboard very useful and very easy to navigate. So with that, I would like to thank everybody for paying attention, and I encourage everybody to visit the dashboard, explore it. We will continue to add more information, more data, particularly data that's more difficult to get. Real-time streaming information from agencies and organizations that are relevant to the economic recovery here.
Well, thanks so much, Walter and Ken, for bringing the dashboard to life and giving us a bit of a sense of what's in it and how you can use it. We've now got opportunity to take questions from the media and, time permitting, from the audience that's joined us here today. So I invite the media to use the raise your hand function, and we'll get to your questions in order, and also invite audience members to post any questions that they may have in the Q&A section of the platform. Obviously, as you've seen, the dashboard is going to become a go-to source of up-to-date information, some retrospective and some adjusted as many as 3 to 4 times a day, that will update how we're living, how we're working, and where the economy is going and where it's been. So a resource for media, governments, businesses, Indigenous communities, and the public, large and small businesses alike, to update and receive information to help inform some of the thinking and decisions they've got in front of them. We've got our first question from the media. Go ahead.
So first question from the audience. They're wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what data sources you hope to add in the future.
Great question. I'll turn that to Ken, and then Walter may have some comments to it. And through the miraculous form of technology, they're here socially distanced with me now. So Ken, over to you, and then Walter, feel free to jump in.
Sure, that's a great question, and thanks for the question. What we're thinking is there's a bunch of information and data out there from agencies that sometimes produce their own data, but they put it up on their website in PDF format or something, and it's difficult to access. Several of them have indicated an interest in streaming their data to the dashboard. Places like YVR, TransLink, BC Hydro, their power consumption by different segments. We're talking to them about putting that up. Potentially BC Ferries, things like that. We've got some information on border crossings. So any organization or entity that actually collects data that is relevant to traveling, transportation, economic activity, potentially will have an opportunity and an interest in streaming their data to the website. I'm probably missing a bunch of opportunities, but that's the kind of thing we're thinking.
Yeah, I agree, Ken. Really data that would provide greater insights to tracking the recovery and just the economic picture for the province, and also looking for feedback from users and other organizations that have data to share for us to evaluate.
One of the key things I would add with respect to the dashboard is that the KPMG team working with our team have built a really sophisticated architecture where we can be additive, and there may be some things over time that may be less relevant, obviously vaccination levels over time. But the opportunity is there for Visa debit transactions and others to really inform the thinking and consolidate that. We've got our second question.
Again, it's from the audience. They're wondering if, Ken, you could describe some of the calculations that you can do with the data, with the dashboard.
Yeah, so this is a great question. For people who have messed around, for lack of a better word, in data, there's always challenges. You got to deal with whether it's seasonally adjusted and whether you should look to month-to-month changes or year-to-year changes. So what we've tried to do is simplify the user experience by having default settings, put in kind of the best information to look at a first cut. In doing so, we largely look at year-over-year changes. And those are percent changes, and that enables you to make comparisons across provinces. So that's one of the main calculations. But again, if you look closely, or if you happen to see it in the introduction, we also, where it's appropriate, look to nearer term changes and talk about monthly changes. So again, users can get a sense of whether something is up year over year and whether there's momentum more recently. And then in things like exporting activity and whatnot, there is another calculation there. It's a bit complicated. I don't want to take up too much time, but often when you get halfway through a year, a relevant question is, how does the first 6 months of this year compare to the same 6 months of the previous year? So there's also these year-to-date calculations that we do. And then just very briefly, of course, this is conceived in the context of a recovery. So many of the metrics and the graphs are indexed to February. So we kind of posing the question, where are we at relative to where we were just prior to the pandemic? And that's pretty useful for things like retail spending and employment. So that way of looking at data is also embedded in the dashboard.
I would just add, Ken, that the beauty of the technology is you don't really need to do those calculations while using the dashboard. That's what the dashboard's doing for you. So previously, this would be calculations that you would be spending a lot of time doing, and now just by hovering and slicing and dicing through the various filters, you can gain that insight very, very quickly.
Thanks for that, Walter and Ken. It's also fact-based in that people will make a comment about a fact. You can go in and actually verify it if you want to as well.
Yeah.
Next question from the audience or from the media.
We have a question from the media. It's Les Lane, a Victoria Times columnist. Les, if you could unmute your mic, please, and please go ahead.
Yeah, have you got me? Audio?
We do. Thanks, Les.
Hi, Greg. I was wondering about the sources of all the data on the dashboard. Do you cite the sources? Some of them, I guess, are obvious, but on the more general sort of findings, is it possible to look on the dashboard and see where that information came from, the original source?
Short answer is yes, but Ken can speak to that because he's the data guru in our shops.
Yeah, for sort of clarity and presentation purposes, we've minimized the sourcing less. So yes, when it's a Statistics Canada source, it says at the bottom of every graph or map or whatever configuration, it says that it's from Statistics Canada. When it's not from Statistics Canada, the other source is not shown. As of right now, if you're referring to specific tables of data and where the original information resides on the StatsCan website, we don't have that level of detail, but an appendix with that information and description of all the data is something we're currently working on to populate. So with that question, I think that's a good thing we should pay attention to and include.
And I think, Les, just to build on that, there's both the hard, I would call it retrospective data that looks backwards, and then there's streaming data that we'll add more on. The streaming data has the source, so whether it's Open Table, for example, on dinner reservations, or Geo Tracker around mobility of people, and Google Mobility. So those citations are at the bottom of the individual tabs themselves as well.
And do you have a crew that is out retrieving this information from the sources, or are the sources just automatically sending this all in to you?
Well, welcome to the 21st century. We have a crew called bots. So I'll turn that over to Walter and Ken to speak to. So Walter, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
That's exactly right. There's a pretty sophisticated architecture or software architecture in the back that does this automatically, effectively. It refreshes, I believe, 3 times a day. And so we have these bots that are out there sourcing all of these data from the different data sources and aggregators.
Yeah. And the technical feeds, Les, that constructed this architecture will laugh at me, but those bots go out and verify the data for accuracy. And if it doesn't meet up with the spec of what should happen, it goes back and sends a flag to them saying, look at this data. So an individual goes in just to verify that it's accurate. So there's almost a double backup to ensure that the information that goes on the dashboard is accurate. So for example, when the labor market numbers come out on the last Friday of most months, it'll pull that data out, ideally at 7 a.m. And if a flag comes up, then we'll go back just to double check that it's accurate going forward.
Thanks.
Next question.
We have a popular question with audience members. Do you report provincial housing starts and development permits?
Over to you, Ken.
Yes, we do. We have, so right now we have very extensive detail on building permit data. So residential building permit data, some number of segments, single family, multiple dwellings, and then a fair amount of detail also on non-residential building permits. Housing starts are something that's very readily available and accessible, and we will be expanding to include housing starts, but there's a bit of overlap, of course, between permits and housing starts. So we do cover off that construction element that is so important and vital in the context of the provincial economy, yes.
Construction is one of the single tabs that actually has an agglomeration of data in it. We track interest rates and a variety of other things that are forces in the context of residential and obviously in development as well. So thanks very much. We've run out of time. And as I said, it's an opportunity for people to come back regularly to check out the site. It's literally about to update again in another 45 minutes. But it's really going to help us understand how we invest, how we're living and working and moving as people and goods through the economy, and how we recover today and beyond. So I want to thank the media for joining us today. And I want to encourage you to